Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Andrew Heaton.
Well, the fall of former Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad has brought renewed scrutiny over President-elect Donald Trump's Director of National Intelligence pick, Tulsi Gabbard. Here's MSNBC host and former Biden White House press secretary Jen Psaki discussing the matter.
Russia, along with Iran, have long supported Assad, backing him during his country's lengthy and brutal civil war. But Assad also had sympathizers here in the United States as well, including former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat turned Republican who is somehow Donald Trump's choice to serve as Director of National Intelligence. Now, back in 2017, Gabbard was widely criticized for traveling to Syria and meeting with Assad personally. And she was also criticized for what she did when she returned home. As NBC News reports, Gabbard has been accused of repeatedly echoing propaganda spread by Russia and the Assad regime, including questioning U.S. intelligence assessments that the Syrian government carried out multiple chemical weapons attacks on its own people. That is part of a bombshell new report by my colleague Dan DeLuce at NBC News, where he outlines exactly why so many foreign policy experts oppose putting Gabbard in charge of our nation's secrets.
Assad sympathizer is, I think, an unfair smear that doesn't surprise me from mainstream media people who hate Tulsi Gabbard. She met with Assad. I think it's fine for leaders of our government to meet with leaders of other governments, even if we don't like a lot of what they're doing. She described Assad as not an adversary of the United States because we're not at war with Syria and Syria is in no position to threaten us. I think that's fine as well. If it were me, I might have added that he's a nasty piece of work, and am I particularly sad to see him ousted from power? No, but we should be clear-eyed about what has happened in every other Middle Eastern country where this has happened in recent memory, which is that even worse people who are less friendly to America are the ones who come in. And so I don't want to see any gloating from mainstream media people or national intelligence interventionist people who are like, oh, this is so great and we're so happy about this. Like, okay, but every single time this happens, we get ISIS or something like ISIS. And in fact, the person right now has al-Qaeda ties. So why are we celebrating? I mean, it's fine, but I don't understand the excitement about it.
As I understand it, the old guy who is an evil dictatorial ophthalmologist who was running Syria, he has been replaced by a reform branch of al-Qaeda. So they're like Lutheran al-Qaeda or
Diet
something.
al-Qaeda.
They're Diet al-Qaeda. So maybe this new, more tepid variant will be less murderous and horrible. So there's hope. But also, I'm going to say the latitude, I think, is pretty big because it might go. I think in my mind, the kind of permanent tether point I have is Saddam Hussein, evil dictator, not an ophthalmologist, but still an evil dictator, and we pushed him out, and it basically deprived the Middle East of this evil secular dictator to make rise for ISIS. So there could be something like that.
Same thing happened in Libya. Gaddafi is the exact same story. Yeah. And look, these are brutal people, and they have brutalized the civilians under their control. And this was a civil war, a revolution by people in the country. We didn't commit ground troops to it, although we did sanction the hell out of the Syrian regime, which has, I think you would reasonably argue, was a contributing factor to its eventual fall. But they've done this on their own for the most part, and fine, but we should just be very clear-eyed about what it means. I mean, we've celebrated it by bombing or letting Israel bomb all of these ISIS targets within the country.
I celebrate all holidays anyway.
We're so excited about the new regime. Now let us bomb your capability, your military capability into the Stone Age. Seems like that we are ourselves sending mixed signals.
I'm very much with you on that. And I also want to talk about Tulsi Gabbard specifically for a minute. So when she popped onto the radar for me, I was like, oh, somebody who seems like they're skeptical of American involvement abroad. I am not opposed to it in all instances, but my default is hold back. You have to convince me to come. And I saw somebody that seems to be that. I had multiple friends in Washington that contacted me and went, you do not want to tether your wagon to her. She's insane. She's nuts. You don't want to be with her, right? And I took it seriously at first. And then I kind of looked back and went, this is the same thing that happened with Ron Paul. This is the same thing that happened with Dennis Kucinich. Anybody that goes, maybe we should peel back, maybe we should be less involved, becomes kooky. Immediately they're kooky. And they might be, but the onus is on you to actually prove to me that they are. So one of the other things Jen Psaki brought up about how At one point, a Syrian informant had worn a mask because members of Congress were afraid that Tulsi Gabbard would spread his personal identity to Bashar al-Assad because she's an agent for him and things like that. These are a bunch of lizard people are accusing the other lizard person of being dupes, and that's a level of scrutiny that doesn't rise to my particular evidentiary threshold. You can't just go, you do not despise Russia the same way I despise Russia and have the same policy presumptions I do. Therefore, you are a literal Russian asset.
1,000%. They'll say the quote-unquote kooky people have all these kooky views, and sometimes the quote-unquote kooky people think things that I don't quite agree with, or are seeing things from a way that maximizes U.S. responsibility for everything that goes wrong and minimizes Russian responsibility, something like that. I don't care for that, but that's just a different vantage point. But then the mainstream or establishment or the bipartisan foreign policy people, when they get things wrong, they're not derided as kooks, or when they believe things that are crazy, as you just pointed out, that she's like a Manchurian candidate or something, trained in the Black Widow program in the Russian, good comrade Tulsi, you will bring back glorious Russia. That's kooky too.
Yes, it is kooky, and I'm never going to criticize anybody for their default position being maybe we shouldn't bomb another country or get involved. I think that should be the starting position, and you talk us into why. And there are instances where we should go. Like I'm a fan of our involvement in World War II. I'm glad we got involved in World War II. But generally speaking, the onus is on you to explain why we should be bombing somebody.
Yes.
And therefore, if I disagree with you on some particular thing, it doesn't mean. I'll take Russian money. Like they were passing it out a while back.
We are on a YouTube show.
Yeah.
I know. And I was like, I didn't get any payment.
But at the moment,
what was this about a check?
At the moment, I'm doing it for free, just because I have different opinions.
I think that was a very good pitch. If you're out there listening, Vladimir Putin, maybe take note. And we'll be back with more free media right after this.